Pro-life talk. Real-world answers. This is Life Report.
Welcome to Life Report. I'm Liz Goddard here today with Josh Brahm and Andrew Nemi. And we have a great show planned today. I'm excited. We're going to be talking about 180, the movie. And this has been out on YouTube for a while now.
Yep.
It's got over 2 million views.
As of this taping.
As of this taping.
Probably 3 or 4 million by the time people actually see or hear this.
Yes, so we're very excited to talk about this today. This was put on by Living Waters, the production company of Ray Comfort, who also runs the show and does these on-the-street interviews. Very exciting, especially for people who haven't been able to go out and be on campus or conduct interviews. It's a little bit of a culture shock, I think, to some folks to see it. So we're going to be talking about that today, specifically some of the things that we really like about how this movie was put together, and of course, some of those things that we don't like about how the movie was gotten together. And
Nothing's perfect.
Not
unless
in Josh's
Steve
world.
Wagner wrote it, basically. I think it's pretty much the way I do.
And you know, I don't
Free
know if
plug.
Steve Wagner has written over 60 books, so
No.
Ray Comfort's got a
He's only
little bit of a
written
resume going on here.
commongroundbook.com. That's the only one he's done.
Yeah.
he wrote
So,
a
and
website.
hopefully,
He wrote a website. He wrote a book. Put it on a website. You can get free. commongroundbook.com. Done.
wow,
It's 3
shameless.
plugs.
Go.
Shameless.
Just do it.
So hopefully, out of this conversation, we can pull a few things that those of us and those who are watching can use in real life. And just to start it off, I mean, I really enjoyed watching this film. You know, short film, 30 minutes. I watched it again over my lunch break today. Perfect little time to watch it. And I love the way it starts out. Instead of jumping right into the abortion issue and turning off people to watching it, I think, because sometimes, you know, you turn on something that you expect to be a movie and you see abortion, it doesn't exactly make you want to keep watching. But you start off with, who is Adolf Hitler?
Right.
And people are saying, oh, I don't know.
Right.
It really, really brings you in. It starts off talking about the Holocaust and asking people about the Holocaust and thought experiments involving the Holocaust. And any person, you know, pro-life or pro-choice, is going to look at that and be drawn in. And I thought it did a great job with that. I was very, very impressed
Yeah, I agree.
with that intro.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things there is that's very telling is, you know, as the viewers, we're all, you know, sort of shocked at how many people don't know who Adolf is. I mean, as far as,
seriously.
you know, him going around and getting these samplings of interviewing people, a lot of people don't know who he is, and that's kind of, you know, where it's, you know,
Or at least a lot of the people that he interviewed didn't know who he
that's
was.
true. That's true. And what were some of the things that you guys were saying you really liked about the movie?
Well, I mean, as far as him, I mean, he's out filming and he's just getting random people off the street, and he gets all sorts of people. I mean, he gets
great diversity.
you know, a neo-Nazi that's out there that's, you know, doing some pretty hateful stuff. It's pretty.
You don't see that every day. That was definitely something cool.
But I mean, most of it's just gonna be just very common, average people that he you know, he's had an opportunity to interview a bit. So.
I liked how, and a lot of I had all these observations when I watched this movie, and then I read a blog post that Scott Klusendorf wrote with a review of the movie, and it's like, oh, he said everything that I was thinking, and then a lot more.
So now you have to give credit for your thoughts.
So a lot of my thoughts that I'm going to say come from Scott Klusendorf because he either said them better or is more than I thought. But some of it's interesting when you do a lot of the stuff with Steve Wagner and Scott. You all start kind of noticing some of the similar things. So
some of the dialogue stuff, because the style is similar to what we try to do on campuses.
I would actually say that's not true, but we'll get to that in what we don't like. I would disagree. The fact that they're dialoguing, yes, I would agree with that. So one of the things that Scott said, the film casts the abortion issue as a human rights issue.
Yes.
It's not just saying, oh, we need to reduce abortions, or kind of. It's like he's saying this should be illegal. He's very, very clear, and that's sometimes rare when people that aren't like these full-time pro-life activists. Ray Comfort's not a full-time pro-life guy. He's an author of many books. He's written stuff on pro-life before or abortion before, but he's a Christian. He's an evangelist. He's a pastor now. He's a street preacher basically. Yeah. And so he came out and he was very clear. This is a human rights issue. Abortion should be illegal. I like that.
Yeah, and he does that a lot. By the way, that I mean, even in the video, it's a 30-minute video. He doesn't bring up abortion for the first 8 to 10 minutes of it.
It's like halfway through the film.
Yeah, it's all
you even hear
talking about the Holocaust and you know what that was, and you know. really pinning it on the people he's interviewing, trying to say, like, if you have a gun held to your head to kill these Jews, would you do that? It's really trying to establish it, try to have them think about what the value of human life is. And I think more importantly, where he's really trying to tug at their heartstrings is, are you willing to do anything if there is an injustice against humanity happening?
Right.
And this was also really cool. He connects, the whole stating that your moral conclusions ought to affect how you vote.
Yeah.
Which is, often rare when, when I see pro-life people, he's really going into, okay, if you're going to do something, if you would do something back then wouldn't you at least vote differently if what you're saying about abortion is true?
And I think it's a good window for, like I said before, people who haven't been out on campus and on the street. You're watching these and you're shocked at how many people are like, yeah, I'd take the machine gun and shoot the Jews. Like, really? Right. Really? That you're gonna do that? And so it's
shocking interviews.
It's good to see that, but they're honest. Yeah. And each person, by the time he gets to the abortion issue, has already gone through several thought scenarios involving their moral view of human life and how valuable it is in regards to the Holocaust, which is a culturally accepted, except for that neo-Nazi guy.
But even then, there's he makes a bit of a change.
Yeah. So the idea of the film is you see the 180 that the folks are able to turn. And I know, Josh, you had some points as to whether or not some of those were genuine turning around.
I think the question for me, and we will get more into this later, would be, is it going to be, are they converted for life, or are they just kind of converted at the spot, but then maybe later are they going to hear some good pro-choice arguments that have not been covered? And that's the kind of thing you kind of always deal with. But I would be extra concerned about that here, and for a certain reason. But that's part of the whole. That's like the second part of the show, so I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, but even with that, I think it has to do with the way that it's done, is that it's very, sort of on the spot. He's going through these points, but it's making people really think for themselves and not be able to rely on, other things they've heard before. He's really trying to define what it is. And I think one of the great tools of the movie is that the way that it's done, and the fact that they don't talk about abortion for so long, and the way that it's sort of edited is very much used as a tool for the viewer. If the viewer has questions about abortion, you're really kind of discovering, you're having to think through the process that he's presenting, and really he takes you on this journey that he had all these people he's interviewing go on as well. Right. So he makes, the way that it's reiterated and kind of narrowed down, you start kind of, going through these same questions.
You have
yourself.
to be thinking about it too. Yeah. I like how, he's encouraging people to engage with unbelievers. And I like how he talks about how, and this is true, a lot of times a good conversation about abortion is going to lead to theological conclusions or discussions. You can't talk about abortion for that long with any depth without asking questions like, well, what makes humans valuable in the first place? Are humans more valuable than animals? And where does that come from, and who decides? And those questions are ultimately theological ones, not just philosophical ones, at least as far as our answer would be. Our answer would be your value comes from God, from being made in the image of God. And so I like how he did that too. That was kind of the last thing that I really liked. Besides the fact that it was really well put together and well edited, like very professional. I like that.
And I think that's a good selling point for it. If you're going to use this as a tool or anything like that for someone to watch, is that it's very well done. It's not just some
right. And there's a lot to glean, like you guys were saying, from those questions. What I liked specifically when he was still in the section talking about the Holocaust, and first he presents them with a real life scenario about would you bury alive with a bulldozer these Jews who are going to die anyway. So I'm already seeing the ties to abortion. They're going to do it anyway. Would you do that? And then if they say no, or if they say yes, I think I would, because they're going to die anyway, because it's me doing it. He challenges them further, and I probably wouldn't have thought of this with what if they handed you the machine gun and had you go do it? Right. Oh, well, no.
Because suddenly that's different for some reason.
Exactly, and he's able to use that then. It's like, well, then why is that different for you? Which is, very telling of why what the thought process is.
Yeah, the direct killing or the indirect killing of these Jews really relates to abortion in a way that he didn't even explore quite so much when he got to that segment of abortion, because you see people, when they bring up the argument of the woman's going to do it anyway, or the child's going to be unwanted anyway, which he does a really good job of addressing later on in the abortion section. Right. But I loved the double challenge of if somebody did say they were okay with something, one of those hard situations where I think some people were really trying to answer more honestly than correctly, which was encouraging to see that they were searching their hearts.
Right.
But I was encouraged to see him push them to a further point with that challenge. It was something I wouldn't have thought of doing.
And that's also one of the things that I think is very good, particularly for the type of people that he's interviewing. These are very, very common, simple people, as opposed to sometimes when we go on college campuses, you get people that really want to get down, into some of the deep discussion of it. These are just common people that,
well, they're there for a day at the
maybe
beach.
Even less. I mean, if I'm not sure when we say common. Like I think when I see people, the people that he's talking to at Venice Beach and some of the responses they gave early on when he's asking, "Have you ever heard of Hitler?" and a lot of them are saying no.
I don't think that's
I think maybe they're even
common.
like below the average as far as like maybe educated or what they know about historically. I don't think we can take from this that the average American doesn't know who Hitler is.
Correct.
No, but you got to take into
that's the only
consideration.
thing. I'm not trying to counter everything you're saying. Just the one,
No, and I mean, I do understand where you're coming from. Also, in his video, where a lot of those people he uses there, he is using other people later on that maybe did know who Hitler was. We don't know that, obviously.
Right.
But I mean, I think it is part of the reality of our society is that people are very ignorant, and they choose to be. I mean, just with our with education and where people passing grades are and where people are, they don't care about this stuff. It's not relevant to them.
It's not at the forefront of their minds.
Yeah, it's something they learn in a textbook, and once they don't think about it anymore, there's I think a large chunk of people that really don't know the details about Hitler, or if it was, even some of the people over there are talking about, he did some bad stuff, but it's not really, it doesn't drive home that millions and millions of people died because of him.
Well, I think some of that has to do with the location where this was filmed.
Yeah, which
I think the majority of it was filmed in Venice Beach. Down south in Southern California. It's an area that, and I've been there, I've done protests there, and it is a different
sampling of people.
Different demographic, yeah.
I agree.
A different sample of the United States. You've got, not only is it California, and not only is it the beach, but it's an area that's pretty well known for its free speech boardwalk, and areas where you get the, meat is murder. I had it. Been there when that guy was there. That was fun. And, you saw the neo-Nazi guy out there, yelling things that all across the country would be just crazy. And it's kind of a gathering place for free speech, which can often be a gathering place for different specters of society, so to speak, different demographics than you would normally see.
And I'm fine with him shooting it at Venice Beach. It's just, I think we've got to be really careful. There's like a whole 12 people shown in this entire movie that didn't know who Hitler was. I don't think that
Did you actually count 12?
I did. And I don't think that we can draw from the fact that there were 12 people, mostly at Venice Beach, that didn't know who Hitler was. I don't know that we can draw any conclusion whatsoever besides the idea that there are some people that don't know who Hitler is. I don't think we can draw any more conclusions than that.
I think more than...
Statistically speaking.
Correct. I think more than the fact of who would or wouldn't know Hitler when he did is the fact that if we have any part of society, even small, the fact that, like he had pointed out initially, that in Germany, this is something that they are very serious about, and it's heavy in their society, where it is not in our society. And if you don't know history, then you have the ability to repeat history. So that's where I think that's where that connection is. So I wouldn't say that people not knowing who Hitler is prevalent, or that even that's going to be the cause of it. It's that is a bit of a reality in our society that people don't know or can't relate to. The ramifications of what the Holocaust was.
You expect man on the street to not know all the state capitals or stuff like that, but you don't expect them to not know who Hitler is. So that was kind of good to see.
One of the things, before we get into stuff that we didn't like, there's the other thing that you can't not like would be the results from the film. And I've been in contact with Living Waters, and they haven't been keeping track of all the stats yet. I was kind of hoping to get exact numbers for babies saved, minds changed, and stuff. And what they sent me instead was results. A ton of testimonies that people emailed them, and they haven't been tabulating them fully, apparently. So I went through every single one that they sent me, and there's more than what they have, but I can say, at least from what I know, there are 7 confirmed babies saved. There are 3 confirmed Christian converts. Wow. There are 14 confirmed minds changed on the abortion issue, and 2 people who were kind of pro-life but are now voting pro-life. And then, like what they basically said was, there's thousands more.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know exactly
who's the one person who writes in about what they've seen,
right?
And how many people? I think the bulk of this is the tools that have been given to your normal person who sees this. It's not hard to see the steps that he's taking these people through.
Yeah.
It's really not difficult to follow the logic and to realize that you could do the same thing. Right. Talking to a friend or a neighbor, so he did a good job.
I think that's one of the other things that's something very good about this film, is that it can both be a tool for education on how you can talk, but it can also be used as the tool. Like, you can have this be what people watch, and that's kind of, that was a lot of what they were going for, was for for everyone to be able to see this, so that they could be going through the same sort of mind process.
Yeah, and it's something that he's used before. I mean, Ray Comfort worked with Kirk Cameron in the Way of the Master program, and the whole last segment of this is using his 10 Commandments tool as a witnessing device. And so he kind of plugged that in along with those same steps to, theoretically, you could take someone through all those steps all the way through, if it worked perfectly.
Yeah, and that really the last thing that I really liked about it also is, there's different strategies you can use for talking to different people, but for the type of people he's talking to the more uneducated, the more simple people,
I'd be careful with using the term simple people. Well, frankly, that kind of offends me.
Why?
What's wrong with
Are you from Venice Beach?
I don't know. I think it seems kind of derogatory to the simple people.
Well,
you peasants.
Well, let's just say the people he was talking to.
Well,
and clearly there were people that were less educated. Clearly there were a lot of the people he was talking to are less educated than the average person. Can we agree on that? Not being mean, not being derogatory, to analyze this film, you have to be able to recognize that, or else.
I can give you that.
I think more than being less educated is that they haven't put a lot of thought into where their beliefs are.
It's a really good point.
That's a good bulk of it.
That's where I think is really the key group that he's talking to. And so what I like about that is, while he's talking to people, he is making sure that they're having to stay on their toes and be sharp as to what they're thinking, because he's not letting them formulate a response. He's having them have to give a reaction. It's sort of what they believe, as opposed to what they can think of.
He's asking pointed questions, is what you mean, and you liked that.
I did.
Okay, so we'll talk about my views on the what we don't like.
Okay, well, how about some of those things that you didn't like about the film, Josh?
Okay, and I know we're not. This is easily going to be a 2-parter show now. We all know this. We're looking at the timer up on the ceiling, and there's no way we're going to finish this today.
But it's good, because I can see, there were some things I did think some of the questions were a little too pointed. Like there was some leading people along, but then again, I can see some of the advantage to that of these people are thinking and forming opinions on their feet.
Right.
And you can see some of them, well, if you put it that way.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
So the way that Ray asks questions, and this is if you've seen other videos of him, this is his style. It's fast paced, but sometimes he's even interrupting people.
But some of that's got to be editing. You're taking these and you're.
I don't think. Not necessarily sure if that's true.
There's these conversations that are being spliced.
Well, sure. But I'm saying, when I'm saying, if I say interrupting, what I mean is if there's a segment where clearly this is an unedited part of the conversation between him and one other person, sometimes he's cutting them off. Sometimes he's clearly trying to lead them that's what he's trying to do. And part of it, the trailer, it's the most effective part of the trailer. They're like, in 90 seconds, this guy became pro-life, like that kind of thing. So to do that, it was a different dialogue style than what we train people to do at JFA. Is what we train people to do.
There wasn't a lot of listening involved.
There was almost none listening, I think, involved.
But but I disagree with that, because if you look at the beginning of the film, especially, he's letting if you look at certain individuals, people that are a little more irate, he's letting them spout off for quite a while. So I can't think that just because he has that style, or because that's what we see, that just means that he didn't listen at all. And I mean, there's some.
I said almost none. There's a lot of times where he'll make a statement, and they'll go to kind of say something, and then he'll move them to the next. Okay, they answer the right question, then we're going to move to the next thing, and then we're going to move to the next thing, and to try to get them to this.
But are you saying that can never be used right?
No, I think generally speaking, I think if we're talking about how to talk to people on a college campus, not just talk to people at Venice Beach, then I think generally speaking, that's the wrong approach.
Correct. That's why I think those are two very different people groups.
Very different people groups. So fine.
The approaches are different because Ray Comfort has this. I'm interviewing you.
Right.
I'm asking the question. I want the
and
answer.
That's part of it too.
And we teach
He's
lot more.
got a camera there. That's different.
And that's going to affect
people react differently.
It's going to affect it no matter what because it's much more difficult to film the approach that a lot of times we're advocating, which is let me come shoulder to shoulder with you,
right.
and okay, well, tell me why you feel you would have that response
right.
to to this killing of the Jews, and okay, well, what led you to that belief?
Right.
That's more of the side to side rather than the front to
right.
front type of a scenario with talking to people.
But even then, that's going to be difficult to do with the medium he has. If he has a camera microphone,
I agree.
You're not going to be able to establish that sort of connection.
No one's going to pour their heart out either in front of
Correct. Because, I mean, I'm welcome to be proven wrong, but I think it's hard to establish a sort of side-by-side connection if you have a camera and a microphone.
I think that's possibly true. I know JFA has done some things where there's a guy with a camera, and they'll have,
and those tend to be shorter.
And they tend to be shorter, but they're not this. There's a Rebecca Haskell video that we've seen a bunch of times now doing these JFA presentations where it's mainly him talking. She's doing some listening, and there's more what we're trying to train people to do. I'll give you an example. I mentor 12 people in Fresno on how to do JFA type dialogue, and one of the people, one of the guys that I'm mentoring, is one of the best presenters at using the JFA exhibit. He'll use the JFA exhibit and he'll get a crowd around him and he'll basically present. He'll do a monologue. And every once in a while he'll ask a question, and I've seen it. And what happens is people will kind of be thinking about the answer, and before they answer he jumps to the next thing just to make sure that they all kind of stay there and stuff. And what I've been telling him is I've told him the story that Steve Wagner tells. He recently, his 3-year-old daughter was putting together a puzzle. And he said it was so hard during the hour that she was putting together that puzzle not to do it for her. All he would do was give her tips.
I totally recognize this.
Verbal tips is all he gave. It's like the corners, or like start with the corners maybe, that kind of thing. But he would never actually, and he said it was really difficult. But I think this is what we need to do a lot of times with pro-choice people, is sometimes it's very easy to shout conclusions at them, but if we let them put the puzzle together for themselves, they're actually going to be affected a lot more long term. It's more persuasive. They are putting the pieces together for themselves, which sometimes takes more time than 90 seconds.
Now, you something?
No, I can totally see that as far as creating a lasting change. I think a lot of these folks of the 180 folks, it worked well for a quick film. I think this is much more effective as a training film and a not quite a shock and awe, but a kind of a window to what some people's worlds can be like. But as far as a lasting change, I do think that a longer form, a more conversational form, where you're using more of a Socratic method with a lot of listening,
right,
could make people leave and not feel like they were tricked,
right,
and not
ambushed.
Feel, or because you could feel when you get defensive, and you could see some of them. I was actually pretty impressed with how some people didn't look defensive.
I think it's because of the camera.
I
think people react differently when there's a camera there.
And that's something to take into consideration when you have the camera there. But I think some people could have left feeling like they were tricked, right, or what happened?
Yeah.
With that, he turned me around, but what did he say?
Right.
Now the way he used some of those illustrations, I think they stick. But I do think you could take a longer approach. A longer approach, I would think, would be more lasting.
Well, and I also think, if you're looking at like a college campus or with a JFA exhibit, for someone to come up and be monologuing or to be conversing with you, you'd have to assume that they are, especially the ones that are going to be more readily available to talk to you or wanting to converse, they have a little more solid of a stance where he kind of caught these people a little more off guard, and they weren't necessarily thinking the abortion issue or trying to, they weren't ready for that. So he had that element of surprise, not necessarily in the ability to ambush, but for them to not be able to have these preconceived thoughts or things that they've heard before, in school, or what things in society have kind of taught them to say in response to the abortion issue. So again, I
think
it's
that
very
was one of the best points of the entire movie, was that you started in a place that didn't make anybody think this was going to be a movie about abortion. So nobody's coming in with their preconceived ideas and with their defenses up on that issue. It's like, what?
And so that's where I think, I agree that if you come to side by side and you have the ability to converse, and really be able to let them listen to them and let them formulate all their thoughts.
Right.
I agree that is going to give you a much better success rate, sort of the long term, and it's sticking. But again, he caught these people off guard.
Right.
And for using that, trying to then kind of segue into a more deeper and really trying to have them just carry on with what, have them sort of give their opinion on certain things or guide them different ways. I just don't think it was the place for it. For what he was doing there, I liked how he did it there.
Yeah. So, and I know we got to wrap up in a minute. So I'll just ask one follow-up question to this idea, and we can kind of wrap up this part of the conversation, and then we'll finish it up in next week. Can we agree that generally speaking, it's better for people, because you call this a training film, and that kind of scares me. It's like I don't want to call it a training film. I want to call it an interesting documentary, something like that.
What I meant by that is, it's easy to remember the questions and the sequences he uses that are extremely handy. And so to take that and train from it, I think is a good thing to take away.
So I think I can agree. I think, for example, we probably don't use hypothetical situations enough or whatever, like the ethical things.
It's very effective.
But I don't want people to necessarily try to go and become like mimic Ray Comfort's question, like the style of really quick pointed questions, ambush thing.
Okay, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're going out from an abortion clinic, that's not going to be useful because that's not the situation for it. But if you're at a high school, or if you're a student or something like that, and these questions come up, I think this is a great learning tool.
I don't know. I think some of them would get upset.
Guys, we're going to have to take more time on this issue. And frankly, if you're really going to mimic Ray Comfort's style, you need to have his cool accent to go out and get people.
You have to be Jewish? Is that basically what you're saying?
He's got a cool accent, I just got to say. But definitely, for those of you who haven't seen the film, go watch it, 180movie.com, or look it up on YouTube. And we're going to be back here next week talking about more of the stuff that we like and don't like about this movie. And this is Life Report. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Liz Goddard, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, this is Jonathan Keller, Executive Director of Right to Life of Central California. As a reminder, Life Report's weekly TV and radio show is supported entirely by generous gifts from listeners like you. Right to Life of Central California receives no taxpayer or government funding, and we want to keep it that way. To help support our mission to engage, equip, and embrace, please visit our website at fresnoprolife.org. Thanks again for listening, and God bless.
You've been watching Life Report, pro-life talk, real-world answers. Life Report is produced by Right to Life of Central California. Visit their website at fresnoprolife.org.